farmer's day begins. This farmer, like farmers everywhere, goes to tend his fields, to coax from the earth his daily bread and ours. But his task is not easy. Whether he turns the soil with a hoe or a modern plow, whether he threshes his crops by methods as old as farming itself, or harvests with modern machinery, all farmers face a common menace. In every corner of the earth, the pest armies are at work, ravaging the fields, scourging the land, infesting the soil. Enemies that seek to reap what the farmer has sown. And the enemies are legion. $300 million years before man appeared on Earth, the insect was here, with time to develop varieties so diverse their numbers are beyond conception. Roughly 1 million species, along with ticks and mites, 3/4 of all the animal kingdom. Of these, 10,000 species are man's mortal foe, endlessly vying with him for food and fiber, endlessly looting what he has sown and tended. And when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts. They did eat every herb of the land and all the fruit of the trees, and there remained not any green thing. As it was in biblical times, so it is today. In the rice bowl of Southeast Asia, the stem borer destroys a crop that would feed half the peoples of the world. In India, it's the capra beetle, world's worst pest of stored grain. In Africa, rinderpest of cattle and the tsetse fly. In the United States and Mexico, it's screwworm. In Central and South America, the cattle tick and torsalo fly, infecting, destroying another of man's main sources of food. This biological wonder, this product of natural selection, this segmented, walking, crawling, flying, gigantic insect zoo is, in all the animal kingdom, the most successful to challenge man's dominion of Earth. Weeds, our silent enemy. Farmers through the centuries have chopped and hoed, scraped and cultivated to rid their fields of these unwanted plants. Since man first tilled the soil, weeds have risen to compete with his crops, stealing soil nutrients sunshine and moisture, producing pollen and poisonous toxins that cause human allergies. Aquatic weeds, marring the beauty of lakes and ponds. The deceptive bloom of water hyacinth clogs irrigation canals and reservoirs essential to everyday life. Elodea, southern naiad, water lettuce, destructive weeds that impede the efforts of man to use his often meager supply of water. Weeds, infesting rangelands as well as cultivated crops. Destroying many forage species on which livestock must feed to live. The lexicon of weeds is almost endless. Johnson grass in sugarcane, red vine in cotton, sesbania in rice, morning glory in corn. Thousands of species of weeds. To these destructive forces belong also the forest and crop diseases. 100,000 different diseases caused by fungi, bacteria, and viruses. In the wheat fields of India, a new race of stem rust. In North America, the death of many trees caused by virus, bacteria, or fungi. To the ranks of the enemy, add the plant parasitic nematodes, tiny soil-dwelling organisms that attack plant roots. Root knot and other nematodes often destroy the efficiency of roots. Insect carriers bring death and disease to man himself. This insect alone, carrier of the organisms that cause malaria, infects 1/15 of the human race, killing a man, woman, or child somewhere every 15 seconds. Other species of mosquitoes, other insects, also bring death or disease. Of all human deaths, sickness, deformity, and disease, more than 1/2 is caused by insects. On our crowded planet are 3 1/3 billion human beings. By 1980, there will be over 4 billion. By the end of the century, more than 6, twice today's population. Food production must keep pace with this rapidly growing world population. Meanwhile, man's ancient enemy continues to multiply. This tick alone, in a few generations, can give birth to young outnumbering the population of China. The common housefly, in a single summer, can produce 191 quintillion of its young. Take the nematodes. In a single growing season, a common root knot nematode can produce 31 quadrillion worms. Indeed, a single acre of cultivated soil commonly harbors 300 billion nematodes around plant roots. In the laboratory, man's mind has long been pitted against his enemies. From his modern chemistry, biology, and dedicated research have come thousands of effective chemical compounds, all to help revolutionize the productivity of our own agriculture, to help make possible the abundance and high quality of our food supply. Fungicides to check disease. Herbicides to stamp out weeds and brush after, even before they emerge. Insecticides to control destructive insects. Rodenticides to combat the hated rat, enemy of corn and grain storage. Bearer also of human diseases such as bubonic plague. All of them pesticides, important tools of food production, modern weapons to stop the invaders dead in their tracks. In many less developed regions of the world, desperate and futile attempts to combat the enemy are slowly changing as technical aid teams help introduce modern methods of pest control. Yet so persistent and destructive are pests that each year they take 1/3 of all man grows. In the United States, 1/4 of all we produce. The powers of destruction, some so uniquely endowed, so ingeniously capable of evading man's most potent weapons, have built up over the years resistance to many once effective chemicals. Within another decade or so, many of our existing pesticides may only be minor irritants. With man only a step ahead of his enemy, new weapons are being devised in the research laboratories. Thousands of new compounds and control techniques are being developed and put through countless tests. For instance, how will rain affect the efficiency of a chemical? Is there a potential hazard to man and animals? It takes years of research until a chemical meets rigid requirements of safety as well as effectiveness. Safety. Safety to man, to animals, to crops, to wildlife, to fish, to beneficial insects, to our total environment. Safety, always the watchword in our use of pesticides. To ensure this safety, the United States Department of Agriculture registers pesticides. And with the aid of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and other agencies, checks for any residue these chemicals may leave in food crops, in soil, in water. Samples are collected for analysis. Food crops are then chopped and blended. A solvent is added to remove any pesticide residue. A small sample of the extract is then injected into this gas chromatograph, a machine able to detect traces of pesticides down to parts per million or even parts per billion. The results of these sophisticated tests may restrict the approved uses of certain pesticides or even take them off the market completely. Research has given us still another major weapon to use in this battle against pests: manipulating or changing the environment in which insects, nematodes, weeds, and diseases thrive. It is called ecological or cultural control. Among its practices are tilling the soil, use of seed and planting stock treated to resist disease, rotation of crops, strip cropping, all to help prevent the development and emergence of certain harmful pests. The land is conditioned to discourage this. In this half of our century, man has conquered the atom, the frontiers of space, the depths of the ocean. Could not this advanced technology be applied to control pests with even greater effectiveness and safety? Within the last decade, radioactive cobalt-60 has been used to sterilize millions of pupae of the male screwworm fly, whose parasitic larvae, breeding in the flesh of cattle, deer, and other animals, posed a major problem to our livestock industry in the southern half of the nation. Once the pupae developed, huge numbers of sterile male flies were dropped over infested areas to mate with female flies, soon drastically reducing the population of a major threat in America. This advanced sterilizing technique has also been used to deplete the ranks of other major insect pests, such as the Mexican fruit fly. We have found that certain radiations have special attraction to many night-flying insects, specifically rays in the realm of the ultraviolet, or so-called black light. In one experiment, more than half of the adult target insect population was captured as it responded to the color and wavelength of these rays. In this trap, unmated female moths were added, their sex odor combining with the black light to attract male moths. With sex a chink in the armor of some insects, man is trying to use the highly active natural attractant in the female of many species, an attractant related to reproduction. In this experiment, an odor similar to that given off by the female household cockroach so arouses the male that it collects in frantic numbers, research that may lead to new methods of pest control. Scientists also study the ecology of pests and man, the balance nature maintains among all living things. Most insects have natural enemies, parasites and predators. Often, a parasite's entire life cycle takes place within the host insect. The larvae of a tiny wasp has destroyed the internal organs of this aphid. The Marisa snail from the rivers of South America is a predator of a different type. It feeds on aquatic weeds. This snail's voracious appetite for weeds may be the answer to a serious problem in the United States. In the competition between man and insects, Sometimes microorganisms, which are found in nature, help the farmer by causing natural outbreaks of disease and death among major pests. The cabbage looper meets a black death through destructive bacteria, fungi, or a virus. Aphids are also subject to disease. The results are evident. Environmental conditions are of primary concern in the field testing of these microorganisms. Variable weather factors are measured and correlated, such as temperature and humidity, solar radiation, and wind direction and velocity. Basic tools for the scientist who evaluates the interaction between insects, their natural enemies, and their environment. Man has also applied his science of genetics to breed a wide variety of food crops that are resistant to the ravages of insects and disease. He studies relationships between a host plant and its insect pest to determine why the plant provides a perfect fit for the insect's growth. By selective breeding, recombination of genes, he adds physical and biochemical factors to alter these relationships. Because of development of disease-resistant varieties, rusts and smuts no longer devastate the wheat fields of our nation. This devastation was caused by the European corn borer. Crop loss was almost 50%. But progress has been made in developing corn borer-resistant hybrids. Selective breeding for resistance to this insect has also developed hybrids that are free from the ravages of root rot and nematode damage. Chemical weed control also boosts corn yields and improves quality. Today, scientists are designing integrated pest control systems which combine chemical, biological, cultural, and other control techniques. Such integrated systems, harmonized with the environment, could be the shape of the future in the battle against pests. Through his intellect, man has developed a superiority over every other form of animal life. He has mastered a science and technology that has created an empire fabulous to behold. By the end of the century, we are promised a dazzling new world. A world in which man will be in control of his environment. But in many parts of the world, despite all of his triumphs, man often reaps only 2/3 of what he has sown. 2 for himself, 1 for the hungry pests. In some areas, 1 for himself, 1 for the enemy. What will be man's share of the world's food supply in years to come? Billion people today, 6 billion by the year 2000. A world that will need 4 times our present food production to avert famine and disaster. Today, our planet contains both the have and have-not nations. People living in abundance and those engaged in a daily fight for survival. If this gap is to be closed, modern agricultural science and technology must continue to provide the farmer with new, more effective, and even safer weapons in the never-ending battle against the ravages of insects, weeds, plant diseases, and other pests. Despite notable advances in the age-old struggle to protect and increase the abundance and quality of our food production, the insistent question remains, who shall reap? Man or his enemies?